Hi, I'm Yolo with Bridging Duality Spiritual Healing Center, and today's bridge is how faith is limitless. Faith is a strong belief and trust in someone or something, and often in the absence of complete proof. And the scriptures talk about faith. And Jesus teaches faith and shows examples of faith. And one of those is when Jesus walks on water. There's a storm outside. This is in Matthew 14, verses 22 through 32. And there is a storm outside, and all the disciples are in the boat. Jesus is off praying somewhere else. And the disciples feel hopeless. They're caught in this terrible storm. And Jesus walks across the water out into the middle of the sea. And the disciples didn't know who it was. They thought they were seeing a ghost and they were afraid. And in verse 27, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So Jesus said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. And he cried out loud, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, and he said to him, "O ye of little faith, why do you doubt?" And then they got into the boat, and the wind ceased. Peter, when he gets out on the water, he didn't stay present with Jesus. He allowed the distractions of the wind and the impossible feat of walking on water, at least that was his perception of it, to seep in and make him doubt. And he wavered in his trust and his belief. In Mark 11, 22 through 24, Jesus is speaking to his disciples about faith and trying to teach them that faith is limitless. And he said in verse 22, "So Jesus answered and said to them, have faith in God. For assuredly I say unto you, whosoever say to this mountain, be moved and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore I say unto you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you will have them." Back then, moving a mountain was a metaphor in Jewish literature for doing what seemed impossible. And Jesus always spoke in parables when he was trying to teach. When we feel like something is impossible, Jesus is telling us that we need to ask and believe. Belief and trust, they go hand in hand. We need to ask and believe, and then we will receive them. You know, I've thought about this many times, and so many times we feel like we have the faith, the trust, we really believe, but in the back of our mind, we allow that doubt to come in. And that's what Peter did when he got out and walked on the water. He allowed that little bit of doubt to seep in. And that's not using and fully trusting and believing. And when that doubt sets in, that's that block that stops us from fully receiving all that we are asking for and having faith in. And also sometimes that faith in something, we could see it in our mind as it has to look like this. But God knows that He has something better planned for us, and what we're asking for, He wants to give us something better. So we need to make sure that we leave ourselves open, truly believing and having faith, but being open to receiving what is in everyone's highest and greatest good. Because we can move mountains, all those things that seem impossible. With God on our side and with faith, anything and everything is possible. In Matthew 21:19-22, Jesus says, "And seeing a fig tree by the road, he came to it and found nothing on it but leaves. And he said to it, 'Let no fruit grow on you ever again.' And immediately the fig tree withered away. And when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, 'How did the fig tree wither away so soon?' So Jesus answered to them, saying, 'Assuredly I say unto you, if you have faith and do not doubt,'" don't even let that seed of doubt sneak in, "you will not only do what was done to the fig tree, but also if you say to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, it will be done. And whatever thing you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive." That believing part again, so important. It's in all the teachings of faith, is you must fully believe it to fully receive it. The only limits are the one the mind imposes, because spirit knows no limits. To have faith is a choice. We can choose to believe in something or someone. Faith is a mindset. In Mark 9:23, Jesus said unto him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Jesus did not say, "You're limited. You have to see it before you believe it." No, he said, all things are possible to him who believes. Jesus is teaching us that we are limitless. When we use faith, we are complete. And when we use faith, we are completely believing and trusting. And you know, we have to trust in ourselves as well. Limitless, that's a big word. Limitless means without end, limit, or boundary. A limitless person is someone who acts as if they have no limits, boundaries, or restrictions, embracing their full potential and seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth. This mindset is about being open to all possibilities and redefining what is achievable by removing those self-imposed limitations like fear, doubt, things of ego, and of course those limiting beliefs. Faith is a mindset of being limitless. Faith is a mindset because it is a way of thinking, perceiving, and interpreting life through trust rather than fear and doubt. It is not just a belief in something unseen. It is a mental and spiritual aspect that says, I trust even if I can't see it. I choose hope over fear. and I align my thoughts with possibilities, not limitations. Faith is a mindset, means that your inner dialogue, focus, and energy are grounded in trust in God, Spirit, the divine, and yourself, no matter what the external world looks like. All things are possible. With God, all things are possible. In Matthew 19:26, we're reminded in Matthew 19:26. Fear, doubt, and all things of ego try to limit faith by saying, that's not possible. But faith moves through the unseen. It operates in the spiritual realm before the physical. When you step into faith, you're no longer bound by what the eyes can see or what the mind can explain. And we are reminded in 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Limitless faith doesn't mean controlling every outcome. It means trusting every outcome. It's not about forcing a result. It's about aligning with the divine will, knowing that all things unfold perfectly in love. We only know what we know, but God knows everything. And we may only see a piece of the pie, but He sees all of it. And if we let go of the control, fully trusting and then doing and showing that trust, we have to put things into action. And we move in action with faith for the outcome that we're looking for. And sometimes we get setbacks. Sometimes things do not turn out the way that we wanted them to. But they're stepping stones for growth, because maybe through that trial, it gave you the opportunity to have stronger faith. Maybe at the end of that trial, as you held on to your faith and powered through, putting one foot in front of the other, holding on to the faith and the trust and the belief, the outcome will be 10 times better for everybody involved as you work through the trials and the seemingly impossible things. Faith and love are intertwined. When you live in faith, you live in love. And love is the essence of God. That's why Jesus often paired the two. As He said in Galatians 5:6, faith works through love. Love has no end. And neither does faith when it flows through love. You know, we can share our faith with others. Sometimes we feel all of these burdens and we just feel weighed down. And having somebody to lean on that can share their faith with us in our times of need is so important. To share or lend faith to others isn't about preaching. It's about embodying faith and love so that others can feel it through your presence, through your words, through your energy. And you become a living example of trust in the divine love. So, another thing is we need to keep our vibrations high, because people can feel our vibrations. And having a high vibration is living in a state of positivity and gratitude and love. And people can feel it, and it spreads to all those that we come in contact. That vibration alone can remind people of what is possible. Jesus spoke often about sharing faith and living it through love and through example, not just words. In Matthew 5:14 through 16, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all those that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Faith isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to be lived visibly through love, kindness, gratitude, and service, so that others can see God through your life. You share faith not by forcing it, by radiating it through your kindness and love. When someone doubts, resist the urge to fix. Instead, speak gently, show love, show kindness and gratitude. You can use words like, I know it's hard right now, but I believe something beautiful is unfolding. You can pray with them. You can share your testimony with them or share stories of hope. You can serve them with love. Faith in action, kindness, generosity, forgiveness is the most powerful way to share your faith with someone. Each loving act says, I trust the divine abundance and grace. When someone feels lost, gently remind them who they are. In Matthew 10:8, Jesus reminds us that faith grows when it's shared. Jesus didn't only say, share your faith in direct words. He modeled it. We go through tests of faith, and I mentioned that early on. In James 1:2 through 6, James, the brother of Jesus, was talking to the Jewish Christians when he said, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, and that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave on the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. I think that's really interesting. When we are not living in an authentic way, we are so easily persuaded by those that are around us. And that really is like being tossed on the waves and driven by the wind. I had an instant this week when somebody asked me a question about my hair and like, when are you going to grow your hair back out? And I am so firm in keeping my hair short. I had long hair most of my life, cutting it here and there. And it dawned on me about how easily persuaded people are because of the judgments of others. That comment from somebody who I love very dearly, and their opinion does matter to me. It could have made me question. It could have made me feel judged. But I let go of that judgment. I'm allowing myself to be truly authentic and be who I am. And I showed this person love in the comments that were given to me about my hair. And then I voiced my feelings about it. And they heard me. And I heard them, and it was a loving exchange. But it reminded me so much about how easily we can be persuaded by the judgment of others. And when we are not being truly authentic, and when we doubt ourselves, and when we doubt God and those divine things, then we are being pulled by ego. We're being pulled by judgment. We're not truly believing and trusting, because we have to believe and trust ourselves. And if we can't do that, if we're not being truly authentic,